Can you hear me?
Yes, Pastor.
Yes, yes,
Loud and
clear,
clear.
Tapos,
clear.
Sure.
yes, and then you can also see the presentation. So, uh, it's good to be back, and it's a blessing that we are again on a Friday evening and learning about the 15 invaluable laws of growth. So we have been in this journey for several months now. I think we started last January, and I hope you don't forget that our goal is really to grow personally, spiritually, and in the areas that we have identified. So these laws that we are discussing will guide us on how we will grow as individuals, as pastors, as um, workers in the ministry, or even as parents or as professionals. So we are now in law number 13, and we only have two laws left before we can finish this course on the 15 invaluable laws of growth. So, law number 13 is the law of modeling. It simply says that it's hard to improve when you have no one but yourself to follow. So, it simply means that in order for us to grow, we should have people more successful than us, better than us, smarter than us, that we can that we can look upon or look up to, so that we can be um, encouraged, we can be challenged, and we our growth will continue. So we don't want to be in a situation where we have no one but ourselves to follow. So this is what the law of modeling is all about. Okay. So here's the statement. If I want to become the leader that I desire to be, and I believe that God has created me to become, I need to find models ahead of me to learn from. Why? Because it's hard to improve when you have no one but yourself to follow. Remember when we were discussing in a separate law, the law of environment, where we say, if you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. If you are the leader or ahead of the class, you are in the wrong class. Because if you are already there on top, then the tendency is to become complacent, is to become relaxed, and it's very hard to improve when you do not have someone that you look up to, that you want to imitate, you want to follow, you want to become like that person. And of course, it's not everybody, okay? We should be very careful on who we follow. We should be very careful on who we imitate, because we become like them. All right? So here's another important statement. The most important personal growth phrase you will ever hear from a good leader, that good leader will say to you, is follow me. You see, it's one thing to say, follow what I say, follow what I teach, follow what I preach, follow what I tell you. But it's another thing when someone says, follow me. Okay, follow my life, follow my actions, follow my reactions, follow my character. Talk is cheap. Everybody can say, okay, follow what I say. But nowadays we are looking for someone that is consistent with what he says and what he does. In fact, in the Bible, this is what the Apostle Paul is saying in First Corinthians chapter 11 in verse 1. Be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Christ. So the Apostle Paul, as a leader, is not telling people to follow what I say, but he is saying, follow me. And this is the kind of leaders that we want to follow. Those leaders who do not say, follow what I say, but whose life we can imitate, whose life we can learn from. It is very important. Oh, growing up, I keep on hearing our pastors say, life is caught, not taught. Okay? Because when life is just taught, it's just shallow. But when it is caught, it has depth, it has foundation, it has a strong, um, um, firm foundation because it is built on something that you have seen. It's not just something that you have heard. In fact, there are many studies conducted by different universities that has shown that many people, including you and me, we learn visually. Of course, there are things that we learn audibly or even in experience, but most people, I think, if I'm not mistaken, between 70 and 80%, we learn visually. We learn by looking at them. We learn by observing them. We learn by seeing how they live their lives. So it is important that we follow people who are authentic, okay, who are genuine, who are not just good in talking, but not backed up by their lives. Now, similarly, we are also reminded of our own personal lives because many of us may have heard that of this phrase that the greatest message that you will ever preach is the message of your life. In fact, for those who are pastoring and those who are preaching every Sunday or teaching in Sunday school for many years, do you know what percentage of what you preach and what you taught will be retained by people? Of course, they can remember a few things, but many times they will forget. In fact, if I were to ask you, what did your pastor preach last Sunday? Many of you may have forgotten already. But you see, the greatest message that we will ever preach is the message of our life. So that when people look at our lives, they see a message. They see how we relate. They see the outflow of our relationship with God, and it flows out of our lives. The overflowing um, joy because of our relationship with God, and it also affects our relationship with other people. So basically, that's what this law is telling us. Look for models, look for people whom you can follow, not just by what they say, but especially by their life. Um, you must probably heard that quote, no, when you were younger, your talk talks and your walk talks, but your walk talks louder than your talk talks. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that phrase, but it simply says your words talk, your actions talk, but your actions speak louder than your words. So that when you say something, but it's contradicted by your life, people would rather believe what they see in your life. We have also learned in one of the laws that people follow what they see, and people continue to follow what they continue to see. So this is very important. Now, what is modeling? So modeling and mentoring is nothing more but fleshing out life and leadership for others. Now, what does this mean? It means you just live it out, show them. Okay. So when you say good a good husband, it's not just words, it's not just what they can read, It's not just the principles, but how it is being lived out. Okay, it's fleshing out that character, that characteristics, that value, that lesson being modeled and being mentored by our own life. Now, we talk about leadership, it's also the same. How we lead, okay? So it's not just about what we say, it's about what we do, okay? So it's just fleshing out and living out so that people actually see what it means to be a leader, what it means to be a child of God, what it means to be a Christian, what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. Now, many of you in many of our churches actually are now doing what we call discipleship. Okay, so discipleship, you take care of young Christians, you help them in their spiritual growth, and pretty much modeling and mentoring can also be applied in our own churches, in our own discipleship programs. Okay, so please note that life is more caught than taught. Many of us think that our words have greater or a heavier weight or a greater value, but we may be wrong. But that because what actually matters more is our life. Okay, it's not our words. Now, let me share this with you. As leaders or as pastors, as group leaders, in the beginning of your leadership relationship with your people, words are very important. Okay. So what you say, they will take at face value. That means they will take down notes. They will really listen to what you say. They will take everything at face value. They will accept it. They take it seriously. But listen to this. As we continue to stay and lead those people, okay, the longer you stay with them, the more they know you, the more you know them. Okay? So the longer we are with them, the less weight our words have. And you may probably have noticed this. Before, people are taking down notes, but l- the more you stay there, okay, the less your weight, sorry, the less your words have weight or have impact, and the more weight our actions have. So less on words, more on actions. That's why it's very important, okay? In the beginning of our lesson, we look for someone that we follow, that we can follow, that can model the life that we want to have. Not just teach us, okay? But who can show us. So it's not about tell me, but it's show me. And also, because we are also pastors and leaders, it is very important that our lives, our actions, they speak louder than our words. Now, here's another thing. People now are telling us, and even we, okay, if we see someone whose words are inconsistent with his life, we don't take them seriously, right? Okay. We don't take people seriously who can just talk but not back up with their character and with their life. So we say, don't tell me, okay? Show me. Because life is caught than taught, okay? So our actions are very important. Now, this is what we call the leadership confusion. What is leadership confusion? Leadership confusion is when we give good advice, but we set a bad example. You know, talk is cheap. We can just talk and talk and talk. And, people can be very good in talking. Okay. They can come up with stories, they can convince you. But what matters more is the life. Okay. The example. So leadership confusion is when we give good advice. We are good in talking, but we set a bad example. That's why when we choose our models, our mentors, our coaches, or our disciples, whoever it is that we allow to guide us, they don't just tell us, they show us. Okay. That means they can back it up with their life. They can back it up with their lives and their character. This is what's going to happen if you are this type of leader who gives good advice but sets a bad example. You will not only confuse your people, so people will get confused, but eventually you will lose your people. So people take genuineness, authenticity, consistency seriously. And the moment they see that there are inconsistencies with what you say and what you do, they will lose interest. So it's not just about confusing them, but it's also about losing them eventually. When leaders talk about humility, but what you see is pride and arrogance and self-centeredness. Okay, what will eventually stick in people's mind is the action, not the words. So it's very important. Okay, well, what we're dealing here is when we choose our models, because that's the law of modeling. We need someone whom we can look up to as our example, someone we can follow, someone whose life we can imitate, okay, because they're fleshing out, they're living out the kind of life that we want to have. Then it's not just about words, it's about actions. It's not just about what I say, but it's about setting a good example and um, uh, actions backing up our words. Now, for coaching and mentoring, you also have to realize that many times some people do not have the privilege of being with someone physically who can coach them, who can mentor them, who can disciple them, who can help them. So it's also um, important that because it says here, most people who decide to grow personally find their first mentors in the pages of books. Okay, so that means books are very good examples where you can read people's lives. Of course, you have biographies, autobiographies, where people pour out their knowledge and wisdom and insights in their books. So that's one. But of course, we know that um, the integrity of the author is also very important. We've seen good authors, famous spiritual authors, who sold millions of books, but eventually, because their testimony was broken, their sins have been exposed, all of that was wasted. So nobody would want to read their books anymore, even if they contain good materials, because you cannot disassociate the person with his character, with his life, and then just ignore what they have done and then focus on their words. So that's why it's very important that we are not just good talkers, good speakers, but we are um, backing it up with our lives, with our actions. Okay? So when you choose someone that you would want to follow, okay, that you would want to be your model. So what are the characteristics of that person? Okay, a good mentor. First, a good mentor is a worthy example because of course, we know that people can be good in some areas and people can be good in other areas. Say, for example, if I want to be good in my finances, of course, I would look up or read about or consult with people who are experts in finances. Okay, so be careful though, because we become like the people we admire and the models we follow. You know, the highest level of authority or a person can have is what we call moral ascendancy or moral authority. So I think this is very important, okay? That we guard our hearts, guard our minds, guard our thoughts, because even if we are good in many things, but if we have been destroyed morally, um, I think people would not look up and say he's someone that I can um, treat as a good example, because we become like the people we admire. So when we admire people who have lost their moral ascendancy because they take sin lightly, then we might end up like them. Okay, so be careful. We have to choose the mentors that we follow because we tend to become like them. Okay, um, I think I shared this with you that the older I get, okay, the more I realize and the more I put value in a person's life and action rather than a person's words. It's I'm very blessed. So many of those who are my age are very blessed to have seen good mentors. Okay, I have seen pastors who even to the end of their lives have not lost their moral integrity, their moral ascendancy. They have not been involved in any sexual immorality. Their family is intact, their marriage is intact, and I think that's what really matters most at the end of the day. Okay, we may be very successful in our ministry. We may be leading the biggest church in your city or in your town, but the moment we lose that moral authority, I think we lose everything. So all leaders are influenced by those they admire. Reading about them and studying their traits inevitably allows an inspiring leader to develop his own leadership traits. So what we're saying here is when you um, choose someone that you will follow, choose someone who is a worthy example. And when we say worthy example, the highest form of uh, character or integrity is moral authority. Okay, so it's very important. Next, um, as you look for role models and mentors, scrutinize their personal lives as carefully as their public performance. Okay, very important because especially in this age of you have celebrity pastors, okay, celebrity speakers. So we may admire how they speak, how they preach, how they show up, how they manifest themselves publicly. But wait, what about their personal lives? Okay, because your values will be influenced by theirs, and we shouldn't be too casual on who we choose to follow. Again, I'm emphasizing this. If you want to retain or to preserve your moral integrity, then look for people whom we can follow, who can be role models for us who have strong moral integrity and moral ascendancy. Okay, regardless, okay, of some people who may be successful, but they are morally um, not good. Okay, so another, I think the base in your workbook. So there is a guide here. So if it is bold and underlined, so that's the answer. The second is a good mentor is available. Okay, so if um, you have someone, for example, your pastor is a good mentor and he's available, then you are very blessed because you can ask questions, you can spend time, you can observe from a short distance. Okay, so um, here's what Andrew Carnegie said: "As I grow older, I pay less attention to what men say. I just watch what they do." Okay. So, when you have a good mentor who is available, who is there, who is, as we have said, fleshing out the values, the character that you want to imitate, then you are blessed because you see how it is lived out. Okay. It's not just words, but reality, how it is applied in daily life. So it's very important that it's not just what we say again, but how we act, our actions and reactions. Okay, let me emphasize that not just our actions, but how we react. Okay, I really observe how people react, how they react to difficult situations, how they react to difficult people, how they react to hopeless situations, how they react to very negative situations, because you will see the spiritual maturity, the character, the faith of that person, not just in his actions, but in his reactions as well. Because I want to control my reactions. I don't want to be, when confronted with difficult things, I want to have that strong faith that God is in control, that He has a design, plan, and purpose for everything, and I should not react in a negative way because I want to manifest faith and trust in the Lord rather than fear or panic or etc. So again, if our mentor is available and we see those actions, those reactions, then we are blessed because we can ask questions, how they go about it, how they do it, how they defeated fear and turn it into faith, etc. Okay. So for us to be able to observe models up close and see what they do, we must have some contact with them. That requires access and availability. For us to be actively mentored, we must have time with people to ask questions and learn from their answers. Now, this is something that I think a lot of churches have adopted already, especially in their discipleship program, that you are being taken care of. Somebody is looking after you, and that's what we call accountability. So we are accountable to someone, and that person, our discipler, would again mentor us and show us what it means to be a follower of Christ. So it's not just teaching us, but it's showing us. Okay, asking questions, because this is very important. When we ask questions, we learn a lot. Okay, because there are things that may confuse us, and we want clarity upon. So we ask them questions. So a good mentor is available. So we never become too old or too spiritually mature for a good mentor. Okay, I think this is um, what the Bible say. Okay, older men teaching younger men, and you know, it's really about looking after each other's back. Okay, having each other's back. That's growing together. Okay, showing a good example. to others so that they will learn from our lives, not just from our words. A good mentor has proven experience. Okay, if you want to be successful, would you want to be trained and mentored by an unsuccessful person? Of course not, right? For example, if you want to be successful in your marriage, would you want to be mentored by someone who has, been in and out of their marriage life for what, several times, okay, and probably in their seventh, eighth, ninth relationship? Of course not. So a good mentor has proven experience. There's a Chinese proverb that says, to know the road ahead, ask those who are coming back. Okay. So you look for someone who has proven experience. Not everybody has the right to speak into your life. Okay, that's very important. Not everyone has the right to give their advice to you. Okay, you have to choose. Again, it is based on credibility. Are they credible? Have they proven their worth? Have they proven their experience? Okay, have they, in idioms, have they brought home the bacon, so to speak? Okay, because we don't want to be trained for ineffectiveness, for incompetence, right? So we want people who have proven experience, okay, who have been through a lot, and yet they were able to come out victorious. That's the kind of people. Those are the kind of people that we want to mentor us, who we want to coach us, we want to guide, who we want to guide us. Okay, a good mentor has proven experience. Another thing, a good mentor possesses wisdom. Okay, so um, wise people. This is very important, and some would say it comes with age. Of course, not necessarily. Not all um, older people are wise people, but of course, wisdom comes with experience. Okay, when you experience something, and I remember what we learned about um, our experience being turned into insights. Okay, and our insights being turned into wisdom that we pass on to others. Okay, if you attended that session, so people who possess wisdom means that they have a lot of experience. They have gone through several experiences, and they can already see things that we would otherwise not be able to see without their help. So wise people often use just a few words to help us learn and develop. They open our eyes to worlds we might not have otherwise seen without their help. Sometimes people would you know you plan something for 5 months. Okay, I know you've experienced this. You plan something for 5 months, and then you present that to someone who has wisdom, and in 5 minutes he would have something to say that you would, oh, I haven't seen that. I've been working on this thing for quite a while, for 5 months, but I haven't seen that perspective. That's wisdom. I haven't seen that point. I haven't seen that possibility. Okay, so we need those people who have eyes and minds, who are ahead of us, who have been there, who have experience, so that they can have their inputs in our lives. They help us navigate difficult situations because they've been there before. Okay. They help us to see opportunities we would otherwise miss. And they make us wiser than our years and experience. So again, we are not the wisest people in this world. It takes humility to realize and admit I need someone who can guide me, who can mentor me, who can coach me, who can disciple me, even at this age, because they have more wisdom than me. They've been there, they've done that, they've experienced that, and they have come out victorious. And we need that wisdom. And we need to find out, okay, and learn. A good mentor provides friendship and support, okay? So it's a blessing if you find someone who is morally upright, who loves the Lord, who loves the Word of God, whose life is backed up by example, okay? And then he would provide friendship and support. That means the attitude is not judgmental. Okay, the attitude is not someone just waiting for you to fail, and you're not good enough, or but someone whose goal also is to see you succeed. Okay, I would really imagine how, for example, an older pastor guiding a younger pastor survive the ministry. No, it's not easy. The ministry, that's why we call it laboring, okay, toiling. It's difficult. Our younger pastor needs support and guidance and friendship and the wisdom of the older ones. And as I've said, the older pastors should provide that friendship and support. Otherwise, who will they turn to? Who will they ask for guidance and help? Can you imagine? Okay. We lose that opportunity. So it's really about helping each other, having each other's back, being accountable to one another. Okay. When we hear pastors who fail, pastors who drop out of the ministry, pastors who did not push through, it should bother us. It should, what have I done? Okay. Have I extended enough friendship and support to these people? Someone says, great things happen whenever we stop seeing ourselves as God's gift to others, but begin seeing others as God's gift to us. Okay. So it's not just about me passing on what I know, but of course, when you pass on what you know, you also learn from others. Okay. You also get the blessing, the benefit, the advantage of learning from each other. Okay. So a good mentor provides friendship and support. Next, a good mentor is a coach who makes a difference in people's lives. So a coach, um, just want to remind you of our definition of a leader. I hope you have not forgotten. Here in Maxwell leadership, the definition of a leader is a person of value who values others and adds value to others. Okay, I hope you still remember that. That means I take care of my own personal growth because I value others and I want to add value to others. I cannot give something that I do not have. Therefore, I should take care of myself first, learn, grow so that I can add value to other people. Now, a coach remains something or someone who carries a valued person from where they are to where they want to be. So here's a good picture. Where did the word coach come from? Okay, it came from the word Cox, or a Hungarian village famous for making comfortable horse-drawn carriages, Coxi, and the meaning later evolved to describe someone who guides or trains others toward a goal. So now, the most I think the most common use is in sports. Okay, you have a coach. If you want to be good in, say, for example, you want to be good in tennis, okay, you need to get a coach that will guide you and bring you to your uh, desired destination towards your goal. So you need someone who can carry you from where you are now to where you want to be. That's coaching. Okay. So normally coaching is specific. We use it specifically in specific areas of our lives. Okay, we coach a person, a basketball coach, a tennis coach, a fitness coach, so a health coach, something like that. But mentoring is more general. Okay, so you mentor someone not just in a specific area, and normally it's long term. Okay. So anyway, now here's the last. A good mentor has a teachable attitude. You may not find this in your worksheet, but I heard this point being brought up by John Maxwell in one of his latest talks about the law of modeling. That a good mentor has a teachable attitude. He admits that he doesn't know everything. Okay, but having a teachable attitude requires what? Humility. So, bottom line, when you are teachable, you are humble. You know, a teachable person is open and honest about his failures in life. So, you may ask, how do I know that a person is teachable? If that person is open and honest about his failures in life. um Many of us, especially the younger ones, if you you uh, if we can travel back in time, and you hear me talk in my 20s, you may just probably listen and hear about my successes, my victories, okay, very idealistic stories and so on, but not talking about or not being honest about my failures in life. We want to keep that. We want to conceal that. We want to hide that because we just want to show a good front. But you see, it's not realistic. In fact, look at this statement that I'd like to show you. If you want to impress people, just talk about your success. Okay? If you want to impact people, then talk also about your losses. How's that? What's our goal? Is our goal just to impress people? Then we should just talk about our success because we want to impress them. I did this, I did that, I achieved that, I reached this, I was able to do this, etc. But we should also not waste our losses because God allows us to experience sufferings, losses, pain, hurt in our lives because He wants us to become more sensitive to others. He wants us to become uh, to minister to others as well. So uh, here's the thing: when you are celebrating, for example, when you are winning, it's very hard to learn because you're celebrating. For example, um, a basketball team, if the champion, the winner would celebrate, most likely they will not learn. Um, they will not have time to learn. But when you are losing, that's when you learn. That's when you have to that's when you find out, where did we go wrong? What can we improve? Okay. In fact, we say sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Okay. So losses is not bad at all. When you lose, when you experience loss or failure or disappointment, that's not necessarily bad, because as we said, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Okay, because it's hard to learn when you're winning and when you're celebrating. Okay, because everything is happy and positive, but it's when you lose, that's when you begin to learn. And we should not be ashamed. We should not be afraid to talk about our losses because God has brought us to those experiences for a reason, so that people will see that we are also people, and it's only by by the grace of God, so that we understand them, we can relate to them, we are sensitive to what they feel, even if we don't have to say, okay, I understand what you're feeling. They know you understand because you've been there. All right. So failures, loss, disappointments, frustrations, they're not necessarily bad. Okay. So we are not just here to impress others. We want to impact people. That's why we can be honest about our failures in life. All right. So these are the terms being used for coach or in different language. I think you have this in your notes as well. But um, in closing, the law of modeling states that you need a coach. Okay. You need someone that you can look up to. You need someone who can mentor you, who can coach you, who can disciple you. Now, if you have that person, if that person is available who can extend support, friendship, assistance, you're very blessed. Okay. Do not miss it. Especially you have a pastor that you can learn from, or an elder, or someone in your church, a faithful Christian, you can learn from them. Okay. Everybody needs a coach. You will never, this is what Andy Stanley said in the book, The Next Generation Leader. Listen to what he says. You will never maximize your potential in any area without coaching. It is impossible. You may be good, you may be even better than everyone else, but without outside input, you will never be as good as you could be. We all do better when somebody is watching and evaluating. Self evaluation is helpful, but evaluation from someone else is essential. That's why, for many organizations, feedback is very important. They value feedback because that's where they learn what others think about their services, about their business, about their experience. Okay. Some people would even, pay external organizations just to evaluate what people. So feedback is very important. Let's not be afraid. If someone says, a gives us a constructive criticism, okay, intended to make us better, let's not take it negatively. Okay, let's take it positively and learn from it, especially when the motive of that person is to help us. Okay, don't take feedbacks negatively. Now, these are the characteristics of a coach. It's in your notes. Okay, just probably have to a copy. They care for the people they coach. They observe their attitudes, behaviors, and performance. They align with them with their strengths for peak performance. They communicate and give feedback about their performance, and they help them improve their lives and performance. Okay. And here's some closing thoughts. The people you follow, the models you emulate, the mentors you take advice from help to shape you. If you spend your time with people who subtract from you, who belittle you, or who undervalue you, then every step forward that you attempt to take will be difficult. But if you find wise leaders, good role models, and positive friends, you will find that they speed you on your journey. What a nice thought. Okay. So let's look for those good role models that we can follow. Again, not everyone has the right to speak into your life. Okay. Don't allow just everybody to give feedback and to give their comments or to give their advice. Not everybody has that right. Only those who are worthy to become your examples. Okay. Now, this is you also in your notes, applying the law of modeling in our lives. You seek a mentor, build a network of advisors. Okay, so I think this is also true in the book of Proverbs. If you have good someone who can counsel you, then you are in a good situation. Follow long-term models, study leaders that you admire, okay? Refine your role models over time. Not everyone will you look up will remain a great models as you grow. Be willing to reevaluate and pass it on. Okay. Once we have, learned from others, let's pass it on to others because as the Bible says, we should become good examples of the believers in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity. Okay. It's all about our spiritual life, being good examples in word. We keep our word. Okay. We are people who value our words, who take our words seriously. Conversation is our lifestyle. In charity, how we deal with people, especially with other believers, in spirit, in faith, in purity. So I hope tonight we will not just look up to ourselves and make ourselves as examples, but we will look at worthy models, worthy examples, worthy to be followed. And I think God has provided us with those men and women who can become good examples for us, with whom we can give that authority and right to speak to us, whom we can be accountable to, because that's how we grow. We don't just grow because, we only have ourselves to follow. We grow because others have grown, have been there, and we can follow them as well. All right. So for our group discussion topics, you may want to. I think this is already. They will post this in our group chat. So here's the three questions that you may want to share with your group. Number one, share with your group how mentoring or coaching, or just like what I said, discipling has helped you in your life. Can you share with someone about, someone who took time to mentor you or to coach you or to disciple you? How has that impacted your life? Okay. Now, we've talked about the good characteristics of a good mentor. So, in your life, okay, when you choose your own models and role models and coaches or mentors, what are the important characteristics that you're looking for? Okay. And how do you plan? So, this is our application. How do you now plan to be a good role model or mentor or coach or discipler to others? All right. So God bless you as you share with your group mates. Back to you, Mama Earl.
Okay, thank you, Pastor Elmer. So now it is time for our breakout room. Let us ask our admin, Sir Steve, are we ready for our breakout room?
Yes, ma'am. Ready po.
All right, so I think we can go ahead so we can have a good discussion in a longer time. So let's go ahead and go to our breakout room. See you all later after 15 minutes.